Captain Elias Wren stepped off the Terran Union shuttle with steady feet. But inside, his nerves buzzed like a faulty engine. The Viri Hall of Radiance rose in front of him, a massive structure of shining crystal columns that bent the light into slow-moving colors. Even the air felt sharp, as if the entire place judged him for breathing it. Humans were guests here, but only barely. Viri guards stood on both sides of the long path. Their armor was made of pale metal that clung to them like living glass, and their eyes glowed faint blue from the faint telepathic energy inside them. Elias knew they could scan emotions if they wanted, but he hoped they respected the treaty enough not to dig into his head. He kept his expression calm, or at least calm enough for someone about to meet the most feared alien ruler in 3 sectors. A guide led him across the hall and toward the Starlight Throne, which was suspended above the floor on an anti-grav field. The throne itself looked like a carved chunk of starlight, glowing from the inside. Sitting upon it, as still as a sculpture and as sharp as a blade, was Queen Syraxis. Elias had seen pictures, but pictures never captured presence. She was tall, with skin like pale metal and eyes that shone like twin moons. Her hair flowed softly, silver and almost weightless, and her expression was calm in the way oceans were calm before storms. She was beautiful in a powerful, dangerous way. The kind of beauty that warned instead of welcomed. He reached the designated spot and bowed respectfully. The hall was so silent, he could hear the hum of the anti-grav holding the throne aloft. "You may speak," Syraxis said. Her voice echoed with a faint second tone, like 2 people speaking at once. Elias had prepared a formal line, something polished and safe. But his nerves twisted at the last moment. And his human instinct, his terrible, nervous, humor-based instinct, slipped out before he could stop it. "Hey, gorgeous queen," he said. The sound rang through the hall like a gunshot. Every Viri guard stiffened. Several took half a step forward, hands rising toward their weapons. The guide looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. Elias felt the blood drain from his face as his stupid sentence repeated in his head. He had just addressed the most respected and most dangerous ruler in the Dominion, with the same tone he'd use at a bar. But Syraxis did not raise a hand. She did not react with fury. Instead, she leaned forward ever so slightly, and her eyes narrowed in a way that made him feel like she was reading his entire life through a single blink. "Careful with that tone, human," she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that warned of a drop beneath thin ice. Elias's heart skipped. Not from fear, though there was plenty of that, but from something stranger. An electric jolt ran through him, the kind that came from facing someone who could either kill you or impress you, and you were not sure which one would happen first. My apologies, Your Majesty," Elias said quickly. "It was not meant as disrespect. Humans have strange habits of speech sometimes." "Strange habits," Syraxis repeated. "Yes. I have been warned of this." She studied him, eyes glowing brighter for a moment. "Yet, you do not fear me." "Not fully." "Oh, I fear you," Elias said before he could stop himself. "I fear you a lot." A few guards tightened their grip again, but Syraxis raised one finger, and the room froze. She stood up and descended from the throne, her movements smooth like drifting water. When she stopped in front of Elias, she stood close enough that he could see the faint patterns on her metallic-looking skin. They resembled constellations. She circled him once, slow and observing. "Humans speak casually, even in danger. I find this unusual." "It's how we handle fear," Elias said. "Sometimes joking helps." "You joke in the presence of death?" "Sometimes, especially then." Syraxis stopped in front of him again. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes glowed with faint curiosity. "The Terran Union sent you to represent them here. They must trust you." I hope so," Elias tried to joke softly. "Because I don't think they'll send a backup after this." She did not laugh, Of course. Virai did not laugh. But something in her posture changed. Like her tension relaxed by a small fraction. You are bold, she said. Perhaps foolish. Perhaps useful. Elias wanted to ask what useful meant, but he kept silent for once. Syraxis turned and walked back toward her throne. She did not sit. Instead, she stopped halfway and faced him again. Human envoy, I have a question. Yes, Your Majesty. Why did your heart react as it did when I warned you? It changed. Rapidly. She tapped her temple. I sensed it. Elias felt heat rise in his face. Humans have strong emotional spikes. I guess mine, jumped. Jumped, she repeated. Is this a sign of weakness? No, Elias said. It's a sign that I'm alive. She studied him again for several long seconds. Then she said. Elias blinked. Test what? Exactly? Your strange courage. Your human way of facing danger. Her voice gained a faint sharpness. I require someone who does not fear the Nullborn swarm the way my people do. Elias felt his stomach tighten. He had heard of them silent creatures that disrupted psychic communication. A threat even the Virai hesitated to confront. And you think I'm the right choice? He asked. I think, Syraxis said, that you have already surprised me once today. It will be interesting to see if you can do so again. His heart skipped again. This time he hoped she didn't notice. You will accompany me, she said. A frontier station has gone silent. My guard's psionics may fail there. But you are immune to such disruptions. Elias swallowed. And if I say no? The hall seemed to dim slightly as her eyes brightened. That would disappoint me. He exhaled slowly. Then I guess my answer is yes, Your Majesty. Syraxis nodded once. Prepare yourself, human. Your actions today will decide more than you understand. As Elias followed the guide out of the hall, he could still feel her gaze on his back. Not hostile, not friendly, but curious and dangerous, in a way that stirred something inside him he didn't want to name yet. His mission had only begun, and he had a feeling it would not be the last time his heart skipped because of the Queen of Vairinos. Captain Elias Wren had barely returned to his quarters on the Vairinos orbital platform when the door slid open behind him. He didn't even have time to sit down, let alone breathe away the tension left from his first meeting with Queen Syraxis. A Virai attendant stepped inside with the stiff posture of someone who feared being the bearer of bad news. The Queen has issued direct orders, the attendant said. His voice carried a faint metallic echo, like all Virai. You are to depart with her within the hour. An hour? Elias rubbed his forehead. Does she always move this fast? The Queen does not wait, the attendant replied simply. Elias sighed. He had known this was coming, but he had hoped for at least a moment to gather himself. Instead, he packed in silence standard Terran gear, a portable translator, a multi-tool, a compact emergency beacon, and a few rations. Nothing fancy. Nothing he trusted completely in the field either. Humanity didn't design equipment expecting someone to fight void creatures. When he stepped out into the hall again, 2 Virai guards escorted him to the hangar. Their faces betrayed nothing, though he felt their eyes on him, studying the human, chosen by their queen. He knew they didn't trust him yet. Maybe they never would. The hangar opened into a wide, glowing platform with a sleek obsidian-colored vessel resting in the center. The ship looked more grown than built, with seamless curves and faint silver veins that pulsed like living tissue. The Virai didn't use human-style technology. Their ships responded to psionic currents, something Elias had no connection to at all. Queen Syraxis stood at the base of the boarding ramp with the same calm posture as before, her silver hair flowing with no visible breeze. Her eyes focused on him the moment he approached. You arrived faster than expected, she said. I'm trying not to make you regret choosing me. Elias replied honestly. A faint flicker passed through her eyes, perhaps amusement, perhaps analysis. Regret is a wasteful emotion. If you fail, I will simply act accordingly. Elias wasn't sure if that meant she would replace him or avenge him. Maybe both. She turned and began walking up the ramp. Come. Time is short, and the frontier station grows more silent each hour. Inside, the ship's corridors were softly lit with blue, crystalline patterns. The walls responded to Syraxis's presence, brightening as she walked. Elias's boots clicked on the smooth surface, while her steps made no sound at all. As they entered the command chamber, he found several Viri officers already seated. Their eyes glowed faintly, forming an unspoken chorus of awareness he could almost feel. When Syraxis stepped into the room, every officer bowed their heads slightly. Prepare for departure, Syraxis ordered. The human envoy will accompany us for the duration of the mission. The officers exchanged glances. A few seemed confused, others concerned. One finally spoke. Your Majesty, with respect, humans are vulnerable. Not to the Nullborn, she cut in. Psionics fail in their presence. But humans do not rely on such systems. His mind is silent to them. Elias raised a hand slightly. Just to confirm, that's a good thing, right? Syraxis did not look at him. But her tone shifted. In this case, yes. The officers didn't argue further. They trusted their queen's judgment even when they didn't understand it. As the ship launched, the view beyond the viewport shifted into streaks of light. The smooth hum of the drive was different from Terran engines. No shudder, no vibration, just a quiet glide, as if the ship were slipping between thoughts rather than stars. After a few minutes of silence, Syraxis addressed him again. You seem unsettled, human. Only a little, Elias said. Heading into unknown danger with someone who could probably snap me in half using her mind. You know, normal diplomatic work. Her head tilted slightly. Is this humor? Again? Yes. She considered that. Your kind relies on humor to face stress. It helps, he said. Humans don't like feeling helpless. That is something we share, she murmured. The answer surprised him. I didn't think Viri admitted to fear. Laugh. We do not fear as you do, she said. But the Nullborn are disruptive. They interfere with our senses, our connection to each other. It is like being struck blind. Elias nodded. And humans don't have psionics, so we're immune. Not immune, Syraxis corrected. Simply unaffected. He didn't like the difference in those words, but let it pass. After a moment, she stepped closer and studied him carefully, as if measuring the thoughts behind his eyes. Your reaction in the throne hall earlier was unusual. You mean when you told me to watch my tone? Yes. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Your heart changed rhythm. It was not fear. Heat rose up Elias's neck. Humans react in complicated ways sometimes. Explain. He coughed lightly. Stress. Surprise. Maybe a bit of respect. Respect, she repeated slowly, as if testing the meaning. Your emotions are loud. They echo. These. That's humans for you. Her gaze lingered on him a bit too long before she finally turned away. When we reach the station, you will stay near me. Is that for my safety? Elias asked. Or yours? Both, she said simply. The journey continued in quiet tension. Officers reported psionic static ahead, faint at first, then growing the closer they came to the frontier zone. Elias felt nothing different. But the Viri crew grew visibly uneasy, shifting in their seats, their eyes dimming slightly. When the station finally appeared in the viewport, it was a dark shape drifting in silence. No lights blinked. No signals flashed. The structure looked wounded, like something had scraped across its hull. Elias leaned forward. That's not normal. No, Syraxis said softly. It is worse than I expected. The ship's scanners flickered with static. Viri systems struggled to operate in the Nullborn's presence. Elias watched Syraxis's face harden, determination solidifying like steel. She looked at him. Human envoy, prepare yourself. We are entering a place where your courage may be tested. Elias stood, trying to ignore the chill that ran down his spine. I didn't come all this way to run, he said. Syraxis studied him again, this time with something like approval. Good. For soon, you and I will walk into the quiet where the Nullborn wait. The ship lowered toward the dead station, and Elias felt the weight of what was coming settle inside him. Whatever lived in that darkness had silenced a full Viri outpost. And now, a single human and one powerful alien queen were about to enter it together. The Viri ship docked against the silent frontier station with a soft magnetic thud. But the sound felt unnaturally loud in the quiet. Elias stood beside Queen Syraxis near the airlock, gripping the handle of his multi-tool a little tighter than he wanted to admit. The crew behind them shifted uneasily. Some pressed their fingers to their temples as if trying to steady their psionic senses. Syraxis's eyes dimmed slightly. Even she felt it, the strange interference pushing against her mind. The Nullborn are near, she said quietly. Elias swallowed. I don't feel anything. That is why you are valuable here, she replied. Your mind is unaffected. You walk into this silence as if it is nothing. It's not nothing, he muttered. I'm just really good at pretending I'm fine. She turned her head, studying him with a curious tilt. Another human habit. Before he could answer, the airlock finished cycling, and the hatch opened with a slow hiss. Darkness greeted them. No lights flickered. No sounds echoed. The corridor beyond looked like a throat of metal swallowed by shadows. Syraxis stepped forward first, her glowing eyes cutting through the gloom. Stay close, human. Elias did. Their footsteps echoed softly on the station's flooring. The emergency lights should have activated automatically, but nothing responded. The place felt dead. Not destroyed, but drained. As they advanced, Syraxis touched a panel on the wall. It should have awakened with her psionic signature, but it flashed once and died. She frowned. The Nullborn disrupt more than I expected, she said. Elias placed his hand on the same panel. Let me try. Human tech is dumb. It doesn't need psychic energy to function. To his surprise, the panel flickered, sparked, and then showed a faint, unstable glow, just enough to project a small section of the station map. Syraxis watched with interest. You force the machine awake even without psionics, she said. It's not me, Elias said. It's just human engineering. We build things to work, even when everything else is falling apart. That is admirable, she murmured. He tried not to let the word affect him more than it should. They moved deeper into the station. Signs of struggle began to appear. Discarded tools, a cracked visor, scorched marks along the walls. Elias crouched by a fallen Viri helmet. No body, he noted. Syraxis's shoulders tensed. The Nullborn. Take what they silence. That's not comforting. It was not meant to be. A sudden noise echoed down the corridor like a whisper made of metal scraping against metal. Elias snapped upright. The Viri guards behind them froze, their eyes glowing weaker as they strained to sense whatever approached, but their psionic senses remained blocked. Something moves, Syraxis said softly. They formed a defensive stance, though Elias knew he was the only one whose senses weren't scrambled. He focused on the darkness at the far end of the corridor. At first, he saw nothing. Then, something shifted like ink spreading across glass. A shape detached itself from the shadows, fluid and twisting, absorbing the dim light around it. That was his first sight of the Nullborn. It didn't walk. It glided. Its body was not solid. It was a mass of shifting black biomatter, edges dissolving into smoke-like tendrils. No face, No eyes. Just emptiness forming a creature. One of the Viri guards collapsed to one knee, clutching his head. It takes my senses. Syraxis grabbed his arm and pulled him behind her. Her voice sharpened. Fall back. Human. Observe. You alone can see clearly. Elias nodded, though his heart hammered. It's moving toward us. Slow, but steady. Can it be killed? A guard asked weakly. Don't know, Elias said. Never fought one. Syraxis stepped forward. We do not fight it here. Retreat to the service junction. The creature accelerated suddenly, gliding across the corridor with unnerving silence. Elias grabbed Syraxis's arm. This way, he said, and led them through a side passage as the Nullborn surged forward. It struck the wall where they had stood moments earlier, the metal sizzling and dimming as if drained of energy. They ran toward the service junction. The narrow hallway forced Syraxis and Elias to move side by side, their shoulders brushing. He could feel the cold aura around her, a soft energy distortion from her psionic shield struggling to stay active. They reached the junction and slammed the door shut. Elias activated the manual lock. Syraxis added a layer of psionic reinforcement, though it flickered under the Nullborn's influence. Behind the door, something pressed against the metal surface. The entire wall vibrated for a moment, then went silent again. Elias exhaled shakily. That was too close. Syraxis turned to him. Her breathing was calm, but her eyes glowed with tension. You saw the creature? Clearly. Yes. Describe it. Like a shadow with substance. Like a hole in the world that learned to move. Her gaze sharpened. Your words hold fear. Yeah, Elias admitted, because I'm not blind, but I'm still standing. That made her pause. She studied him with an intensity that made his skin warm. Your mind remains clear while mine struggles. Your courage is stable, while ours shakes. Her voice dropped a little. It is unusual. He tried a weak smile. We're just built differently. She stepped closer, almost in his space. Elias swallowed. What now? We search for survivors, she said. Someone must have sent the distress pulse before the station fell silent. And the Nullborn? They will follow, she said. But with you near, I can keep my senses long enough to strategize. Glad to be useful. You are more than useful, Syraxis said quietly. You are essential. The words struck him harder than he expected. They opened another door deeper into the junction. The lights flickered, then steadied slightly. Elias noticed how Syraxis stayed close, not out of fear, but out of necessity. Her psionics stabilized when he was near, like his presence grounded the interference. The corridor ahead led toward the lower decks. Faint scuff marks lined the floor, and a dropped datapad blinked faintly. Someone passed here recently, Elias said. Then we are not too late. They moved carefully, scanning every corner. Elias felt the pressure of the silence, but he also felt a growing resolve. For the first time, he wasn't just a diplomat or an accidental daredevil. He had a role no one else could fill. He wasn't sure if that felt amazing or terrifying. As they rounded a corner, a faint noise reached them, a weak cough. Syraxis's eyes widened slightly. A survivor. They rushed forward and found a Viri engineer slumped against the wall, breathing shallowly. His eyes flickered as they struggled to focus. Your Majesty, he whispered. The swarm. They broke through. We fled. But the others. Syraxis knelt beside him, steady and regal. Rest. You are safe now. The engineer reached out weakly and grabbed Elias's sleeve. You are human. Last I checked. Elias said softly. You can fight them. You must warn. A crash echoed down the hall. Syraxis stood instantly, her posture sharp as a blade. Elias felt the vibration through the floor. The Nullborn were coming again. And this time, There were more of them. The sound that echoed through the lower decks was heavier this time. More bodies, more movement, more of the Nullborn, gathering in the dark. Elias felt the vibration run through the floor and up his spine. The Viri engineer clung weakly to consciousness, and Syraxis placed a steadying hand on the injured man's shoulder before rising. "They are multiplying," she said quietly. "The swarm moves as one." Elias steadied his breathing. "Then we need to move fast." Syraxis nodded. "There is a maintenance shaft ahead. It leads to the operations core. If any survivors reached it, they may have sealed themselves inside. But if the Nullborn reach them first," Elias started. "They will not," Syraxis said, her voice firm. "Not while we still stand." Elias helped the injured engineer up, supporting him with an arm around his waist. The engineer was light, too light, as if the creature's influence had drained him inside and out. Syraxis walked on his other side, her psionics flickering as she tried to stabilize the corridor's failing lights. As they moved, Syraxis kept glancing back at Elias, not with fear, but with calculation, like she was studying him, measuring how a simple human remained so steady when the station itself seemed to pulse with an alien presence. "You do not fear them the way we do," she said once they reached the next junction. "Oh, I fear them plenty," Elias replied. "But fear doesn't stop me." "Strange," she murmured. "And strong." They continued forward, passing broken panels and collapsed support beams. The deeper they went, the more signs of struggle they saw: bent metal, scorch marks, the remains of equipment torn apart. The echo of distant scraping continued behind them, growing louder. Elias's heart pounded harder. "They're coming faster." "They sense minds," Syraxis said. "They seek psionic energy, like a hunger." "And they can't sense me?" Elias asked. "They can," she said, "but not the way they sense my kind. Your thoughts are quieter." "Guess that's an advantage." Her eyes flickered with approval. "It is." They reached the maintenance shaft. A narrow, metal-lined corridor, leading downward. Elias turned to Syraxis. "I'll go first. You cover the rear." "You lead despite lacking vision in the dark?" she asked. "I improvise," he said with a small grin. "It's a human specialty." She didn't smile back, but her eyes softened at the edges. "Then, lead." Elias shifted the engineer's arm over his shoulder and began guiding him down the sloping shaft. Syraxis followed, her presence behind him sharp and quiet. As the shaft tightened, the scraping noise behind them grew louder. Elias didn't want to look back, not just because of fear, but because he needed to stay focused on the narrow path ahead. Halfway down the descent, the station shuddered. Elias lost his footing for a second, almost slipping. Syraxis immediately grabbed his shoulder from behind, steadying him with surprising strength. "Careful," she said. "This station is weakening." "Thanks," Elias said. Her hand lingered a moment longer before she pulled it away. "Continue. We must reach the core." At the bottom of the shaft, they emerged into a service corridor dimly lit by emergency power. The lights buzzed faintly. A heavy security door loomed at the far end. "That's the operations center," the engineer whispered weakly. "Are there others inside?" Syraxis asked. "Yes, maybe 6 or 7. "Good," she said. Elias hurried the engineer forward, but when they were halfway there, a deep rumbling sound echoed behind them. The corridor's shadows rippled. Elias turned. Multiple Nullborn shapes slid into view: 6, 7, maybe more, flowing like living darkness. "Run!" They rushed toward the security door. Syraxis raised both hands, attempting to form a psionic barrier, but the power flickered weakly. The suppression field from the Nullborn was too strong. "They disrupt me completely," she growled, through clenched teeth. Elias slammed his free hand against the door's manual override panel. Come on, open!" It buzzed, flickered, and then shut down. Denied, the engineer whispered. The core went into lockdown. Only the inside can open it now. Elias's stomach tightened. The Nullborn were gliding closer, filling the entire corridor behind them like a wave of living shadow. Syraxis, Elias said, I need you to trust me. She stepped closer, her eyes glowing brighter. Say what you intend. You can't use psionics. So we're going to do this the human way. She blinked. Which is? Improvising something stupid, fast, and probably dangerous. Her head tilted slowly. Explain. Elias scanned the corridor. Broken panels. Loose wiring. Exposed conduits. A heavy power coupling sparking softly. Perfect, Elias whispered. He set the engineer down and turned to Syraxis. I need you to pull that coupling free. With my strength, she said. I could overload the circuit. That's the point. She hesitated for 1 second. You risk destroying the corridor. You have a better idea? Her eyes flickered with that same dangerous curiosity he'd seen before. No. And I want to see where this leads. She stepped toward the conduit, reached out, and tore the thick cable free with one controlled pull. Sparks exploded across the corridor. Elias grabbed 2 exposed wires from a broken panel, twisting them together with shaking hands. When I say, now, touch that wire to the coupling. And the Nullborn? Syraxis asked. They're made of energy-absorbing matter. If we overload the entire conduit system at once, it will overwhelm them, she finished. Or it'll blow us up, Elias muttered. Syraxis's lips parted slightly, not a smile, but the closest thing her kind had. Human. You are chaos. Thanks, Elias said. On 3. The swarms surged forward, filling the corridor with shifting void. 1. Syraxis tensed. 2. The Nullborn reached out, tendrils stretching toward them. Now. Syraxis slammed the wire against the coupling. A blinding burst of light flooded the corridor. The floor shook violently. The walls groaned. The Nullborn screamed not with sound, but with a vibrating wave that shook Elias's bones. Their bodies flickered, shattered, and dissolved into drifting black dust. The shockwave threw Elias backward. Syraxis reached for him, pulling him into her arms as they both crashed against the locked security door. Elias groaned, feeling the weight of the world press into him. The lights flickered back on. Silence followed. The Nullborn were gone. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Elias was half-sprawled across Syraxis, her silver hair brushing his face. Her grip tightened around him. Steady and protective. You survived, she said softly. Same to you, he said, his voice strained. She slowly released him, her glowing eyes scanning his face with an intensity that made his breath catch. You continue to surprise me, human, she murmured. Elias managed a weak grin. Get used to it. Suddenly, the security door clicked. It opened a crack, and a frightened Viri voice whispered, Identify yourselves. I. Syraxis straightened, her voice cold and commanding. It is I. Open the door. The survivors rushed to unlock it fully. As they pulled Elias and Syraxis inside, one thing was clear. The Nullborn weren't gone. Their attack would only escalate now, and Elias had become the one person the Viri Queen could rely on in the fight that was coming next. The operations core was brighter than the rest of the station, though the lights flickered weakly and the air carried the sharp scent of burning circuits. 7 Viri survivors huddled inside, engineers, guards, and 1 medic, each of them looking pale and exhausted. Their eyes widened when they saw Queen Syraxis step through the door. Your Majesty, one engineer whispered, bowing his head even as he struggled to stay upright. We feared you were lost. Syraxis lifted a hand. Stand, Your fear is understandable. But we are not finished yet. The medic moved to help the injured engineer Elias had carried. Syraxis watched for a moment, checking that the wounded man was stable, before turning her gaze to Elias. He stood near the doorway, catching his breath, his clothes singed slightly from the explosion he had created. You risked your life to stop the swarm, she said, without hesitation. That's what you do when something is chasing you, Elias replied. Or, when someone needs help. Several of the viri looked at him with surprise. They weren't used to humans, especially humans taking charge in a crisis. Syraxis stepped closer. Your actions bought us time, but the Nullborn will gather again. We must find a permanent solution. Elias rubbed his forehead. So what's our next move? The operations core houses the main reactor, she explained. If we overload it, the resulting burst of energy may destroy the entire swarm on the station. Elias blinked. Wait. Destroy the station? Yes, she said calmly. Everything within it. He stared at her. We leave first, she said. That's comforting, he muttered. One of the surviving guards spoke up. Your Majesty, even reaching the reactor requires moving through the lower floor. That level is entirely overrun. And our psionics will fail before we even reach the stairs, another added, trembling slightly. Syraxis did not deny it. Instead, she turned her head toward Elias again. The room grew quiet as everyone realized what she was thinking. You want me to go, Elias said. You can walk through areas that disable us, Syraxis replied. You can move unseen, unheard, and unaffected by the swarm's mental interference. You are the only one who can activate the overload. Elias exhaled slowly. So it's a one-man mission. No, Syraxis said. I will go with you. He blinked. But your psionics. My presence may weaken, but I can still fight, she said firmly. And I will not send you alone. Her eyes glowed with determination that made Elias's chest tighten. She wasn't letting him face death without her. She wasn't letting him become a sacrifice. He nodded. Then, we do it together. Syraxis inclined her head. Together. The survivors quickly prepared what little gear they had left. Elias grabbed a toolkit, a portable power bypass, and a field stabilizer. The viri guards handed Syraxis a light blade, a thin metal hilt that extended into a shimmering edge of energy. When she activated it, the blade hummed with a soft blue glow. When they opened the secure door again, the corridor outside was quiet, too quiet. Elias felt a cold shiver along his spine. They're waiting. Thanks for watching. They're waiting. Syraxis stepped beside him, her weapon ready. The swarm learns. They adapt. Great. Elias whispered. Smart. Shadows. They moved down the corridor with slow, careful steps. Elias led the way, listening for the faint scrape or whisper that signaled Nullborn movement. Syraxis followed close enough that he could feel the warmth of her presence behind him, her psionics flickering like a weak flame. The closer they got to the lower floors, the more she struggled. Talk to me, Elias said quietly. Tell me you're still aware. I am here, Syraxis replied. Your proximity stabilizes my senses. He glanced back. I guess I'm good to have around after all. Her expression softened. Better than that. Before he could ask what she meant, a sudden ripple of darkness spread across the ceiling. Elias grabbed Syraxis's arm and pulled her back, just as a Nullborn creature dropped in front of them, its form twisting and stretching. Syraxis swung her light blade in a clean arc. The blade passed through the creature, slicing it in half, but instead of dying, the pieces reformed and lunged again. Of course they don't die easily, Elias muttered. He spotted a loose power cable sparking from the wall. Without thinking, he shoved it toward the creature. The arc of electricity struck the Nullborn, making its form vibrate violently before dissolving into drifting dust. Syraxis looked at him with amazement. You continue to use the environment creatively. Improvisation, Elias said again. It's what humans do when life gets weird. They pushed forward. Every few minutes, they encountered more. Nullborn, some trying to cut them off, others hiding in the shadows. Elias used anything he could find. Broken conduits, heavy panels, exposed wiring. Syraxis used her blade to cover him, moving with precision even as her psionics flickered unstable. Together, they made it to the lower floor. The reactor chamber loomed ahead, the massive power core pulsing weakly. The Nullborn had drained much of its energy, but Elias knew it still held enough to destroy the station, if overloaded. "This is it," Elias said, stepping toward the control console. Syraxis stayed close, her breathing slow. "I will defend you. Begin the overload sequence." Elias opened the panel, his hands moving quickly. He rerouted stabilizers, bypassed safety circuits, and initiated the surge path. The reactor lights shifted from blue to yellow. 5 minutes until overload, Elias said. "Can we escape before then?" Syraxis asked. "If we run." Suddenly, the shadows around the chamber began to pulse. Elias froze. They know. The Nullborn emerged, dozens of them flowing down the walls, the ceiling, the floors. Syraxis stepped in front of him, light blade glowing fiercely. "Elias, stay behind me." "No," he said. "Not this time." He grabbed a heavy, unstable power coil from the floor. It sparked dangerously in his hands. "On 3, he said. "We blast a path out of here." Syraxis looked at him with something stronger than admiration, something deeper. "Then say it." 1. The Nullborn surged forward. 2. Syraxis lifted her blade. 3. Elias slammed the power coil into the ground. A blinding wave shot outward, vaporizing the Nullborn closest to them. Syraxis charged forward, cutting through the path Elias opened. He followed her, running as fast as his legs could move. Behind them, the reactor alarm blared. 3 minutes! Elias yelled. They sprinted through the corridors, dodging falling debris and crashing shadows. Elias stumbled once, and Syraxis caught him with her arm, pulling him back to his feet without slowing. "You live," she said. "You do not fall." "I'm trying," he shouted back. They reached the maintenance shaft, climbed, ran again. The survivors were waiting at the docking bay, readying the ship. Elias and Syraxis jumped aboard just as the station trembled violently. "Go," Syraxis commanded. The ship launched away from the dying station. Through the viewport, the structure split with blinding light. A second later, the entire station exploded in a silent burst of white energy, wiping out the Nullborn swarm once and for all. The shockwave passed over the ship harmlessly. Elias collapsed into a seat, breathing heavily. Syraxis stood in front of him, her eyes glowing softly. "You saved us," she said. "We saved each other," Elias replied. She stepped closer, close enough that he felt the warmth of her breath. "Human," she said quietly. "Your courage, your chaos, your heart, all of it, is remarkable." Elias tried to smile, but his breath caught. "Careful with that tone, Your Majesty." At that, her eyes brightened, and for the first time, Elias thought the Queen of Virinos might actually smile.